Tomorrow morning, you will wake up to an alarm. Before your eyes are even fully open, a list is already forming. Where you have to be, what you owe, who is waiting on you. You did not choose that list. It was there before you woke. Now picture waking up with none of it. No alarm, no schedule, no place you have to be. You sit up, you stretch, and the only question in front of you is a strange one. What do I actually want to do today? For almost the entire human story, that was not a daydream. That was simply what a morning was. For roughly 300 dozen years, this is how a person woke up. And the day that followed looked almost nothing like yours. Here's the number that should stop you. Over a lifetime, a modern person spends around 90,000 hours working. That is about a third of your waking life, handed to a job. But for the overwhelming majority of the time humans have existed, there were no jobs, no wages, no boss, no career to climb, and no retirement to limp toward. So if nobody had a job, what on earth did people do all day? We are not just guessing. In 1963, an anthropologist named Richard Lee went to live with the Jew Hoansi people of the Kalahari, one of the last groups still living in a way that resembles life before farming. He did something simple. He counted. He measured how many hours they actually spent getting food. The answer was about 17 hours a week. Not a day, a week. 2.5 days of effort, and the rest of the time was theirs, to spend however they liked. And this was not a quirk of one desert. Wherever anthropologists looked, the same answer came back. The Hadza in Tanzania, the Aceh in Paraguay, the Martu in Australia. Different continents, different climates, different animals, and the same result. Somewhere between 15 and 20 hours a week spent on survival. You almost certainly work more than double that, and you call it normal. Now a fair thought is creeping in. Those are living people, not ancient ones. How do we know our distant ancestors lived the same way? The answer is written in their bones. When you lay the skeleton of an ancient forager beside the skeleton of one of the first farmers, the difference is brutal. The farmers were shorter. Their bones carry the marks of hunger. Their teeth are riddled with cavities from a life of grain. Their spines are worn down by the same motion repeated 10,000 times, and they died younger. The foragers who came before them were taller, stronger, with better teeth and far less damage. The bodies themselves testify. The people doing less grinding, repetitive labor were the ones who came first. But the strangest evidence is the kind that should not exist at all if every day was a desperate fight to stay alive. Art. In 1994, explorers crawled into Chauvet Cave in southern France and found paintings made around 30,000 years ago. Horses, lions, rhinos, drawn with shading, with perspective, with a real sense of movement. This was not a hurried scratch on a wall. This was the work of someone with skill and with something even rarer: time. Somebody spent hours, maybe days, deep in the dark by firelight, painting animals that fed no one, for no reason except that it was beautiful. And it goes back much further. In Blombos Cave in South Africa, there are shell beads 100,000 years old, tiny holes bored through seashells so they could be strung and worn. The nearest sea was 20 kilometers away. Someone walked 40 kilometers there and back to gather shells, and then sat and drilled them with a stone just to have something lovely to wear. In Germany, there is a flute carved from the bone of a vulture, 40,000 years old, with 5 finger holes spaced just right. Whoever made it understood music. They heard pitch. And they spent real time, not on a weapon, not on a trap, but on a song. These are not rare accidents. From 100,000 years ago onward, across Africa and Europe and Asia, the ground is full of the same thing: decoration. Tools made far finer than they ever needed to be. Objects that took hours of patient work and paid back nothing you could eat. This is what people did with the time that survival did not take. They made things. They made them beautiful. So let us walk through one of those days. You wake near dawn. Last night's fire is still glowing and someone feeds it. Breakfast is whatever is left from yesterday. Some meat, some nuts, some berries, and it is a social thing. People talk. They loosely sketch the day, not because a plan is required, but because that is simply what humans do. Maybe a small group will go out to hunt or gather, But here's the part that breaks the modern brain. You do not go every day. If the hunt 2 days ago went well and there is food stored, you might not leave camp at all. You might spend the morning making a spear sharper, weaving a basket, softening a hide. This is not work the way you mean it. There is no clock and no one watching. You do it because being good at things matters here, because skill earns respect, because making something well is part of being a person. And when a hunt does happen, it is not the wild chase from the movies. Humans are persistence hunters. We pick an animal and we follow it at a steady jog for hours until it overheats and stops. We are almost the only creature that can do this because we can sweat and keep our bodies cool while we run, and most animals cannot, so we simply outlast them. A hunt might take 3 to 6 hours with the walking. Then the animal is carried home and shared out and everyone eats. And by early afternoon, the part of the day that had to be done is essentially finished. What comes next is the part we have lost the ability to even imagine. Nothing and everything. People rest. They sit in the shade and talk. They play with the children. They pick through each other's hair, which sounds small, but is the glue of the whole group. They make beads. They carve patterns in the bone. They nap. The anthropologist James Sussman, who lived with the Jew Hoensai, found that adults spend around 6 hours a day simply being together. Not working, not sleeping, talking, laughing, telling jokes. Because in a world with no money, no police, no written contracts, the only thing standing between you and starvation is whether people like you. If they do not have to share when you are hungry. So you pour your time into those bonds, not because it is productive, but because it is how you stay alive and how you stay human. Then the sun goes down and something remarkable happens. The anthropologist Polly Wiesner once recorded hundreds of hours of conversation among the Jew Hoansi. In the daytime, the talk was practical. Who saw tracks where? Which plants were ready? Who had not shared fairly? But after dark, around the fire, more than 8 and 10 conversations turned into something else. Stories. How the world began. Ancestors who did impossible things. Jokes that bent everyone double. Journeys to faraway places. Wiesner argued that this, the firelit hour, is where human culture was actually born. Gods, spirits, the past, the future. The things you can only afford to think about once your belly is full and you are safe in the dark. And they did not sleep the way you do. Before there was artificial light, people slept in 2 pieces. A first sleep of about 4 hours, then an hour or 2 awake in the darkness, quiet, thinking, sometimes talking, then a second sleep of another 4. The wakeful gap in the middle was not a problem to be fixed. It was just a normal part of the night. So here's the shape of a whole day. Around 4 to 6 hours finding food or making tools. Around 6 hours with other people, telling stories, grooming, playing. About 8 hours of sleep in 2 halves. And the rest, sitting, watching the clouds, doing nothing in particular, existing without having to earn the right to exist. And then, around 10,000 years ago, it ended. In a stretch of land we call the Fertile Crescent, people began to plant seeds and pen animals. Farming. And farming is a trap that closes slowly. Once you grow food, you can feed more people. More people need more food. More food means more farming. Within a few generations, the population swells, and there is no way back, because now there are far too many mouths to feed by hunting and gathering. You are locked in. And farming asks so much more of you. Plowing, planting, weeding, harvesting, storing, guarding the crop from animals and from other hungry people. The bones say it plainly. The first farmers worked harder, ate worse, and died younger than the foragers they replaced. But the numbers kept climbing. And with crowds came specialists. Toolmakers, potters, weavers, then soldiers, priests, and the people who keep the records. And eventually, the strangest invention of all. The job. The idea that your time is no longer your own. That it belongs to someone else, in exchange for what you need to live. By the time we built the first cities, the old way of living was simply gone. Buried under schedules and obligations, and the need to spend most of your waking hours working, just to stay afloat in a system we built ourselves. So look at the 2 lives side by side. You will spend 90,000 hours working. They spent a fraction of that. You sleep in one block and call it insomnia when you wake at 2 in the morning. They slept in two halves and used the dark hour between them to think. You spend your life chasing a kind of greatness that somebody else defined for you. More money, more success, more proof. They woke up every morning already free, already enough, with nothing to prove to anyone.
They did not need to become successful one day. They were already living the life you are working your whole life to retire into. You make art if you can find a gap after work. They made art because the time was simply theirs. We are the same animal they were. Not a different species, just a creature living so far from how it lived for almost its entire existence that we might as well be. Somewhere along the way, we made a trade we never quite agreed to. We gave up freedom for a fuller storehouse. We gave up our afternoons for a bigger crowd. We gave up our time, and we called it progress.